Welcome to Hot Flashbacks, where we boldly navigate the ups and downs and unexpected detours of our 30s and 40s while finally recalling how clueless we were in our 20s. I'm Molly Ward, your captain through this midlife roller coaster. Stick around for laughs, life lessons, and maybe a few I can't believe I survived that stories. Follow our journey on Instagram and Facebook at Hot Flashbacks. Make sure to like, follow, and share so I can keep making these episodes. Let's dive in.
Yeah, we definitely affectionately called it fuzz blood.
Ew.
That sounds better. How is that not better?
I don't know. What kind of fuzz blood?
Fuzz blood is better than like open wound blisters. Like if I'm reading one on the page, I have less visceral reaction to fuzz blood.
Yeah, fuzz blood sounds like some kind of weird Harry Potter spell or something.
It kind of sounds like a candy almost.
Yeah. Welcome to Hot Flashbacks. I'm your host, Molly Ward. And I'm excited to be here with y'all because I have a more professional than me podcast co-host today, which don't worry, she's already pointed out like 3 times that her show is better, more professional, smarter, and better looking than mine. Does that sum it up?
Not that I would say that on the record, but I think any of the talent that goes into any podcast I am part of all has to be given up to the co-host because I am just the dingleberry of podcast talent. So
you're the good looks.
I am clingy
of the show that's not on video.
Not even. Have you seen what Noelle looks like? Fucking smoke show. So absolutely not. I think I bring the spice of believing in everything I see on the internet. So
good. I'm into that. I'm into believing everything that you read on the internet, and then also only reading the things you want to believe. That's how I operate.
Yeah, I definitely am in an echo chamber. So only the fun. I like to say. Also, I'm Chelsy. I don't know. One thing I like to say is that we are my other podcast. We are a conspiracy podcast, but the fun types of conspiracy where we are still vaccinated, want a free Palestine, and are also not anti-Semitic. So those kinds of fun conspiracy theories.
Okay.
So don't get it. Don't get it twisted.
No. So you kind of like mumbled your name, but let's not do that. So name, age, and then tell us about your show.
Age?
Yeah, you have to. This is a podcast about being old. Don't try to get out of it.
My name is Chelsy. I am from the Chelsy. I put a T in it if I want to be a bitch.
Right.
I am from the podcast Chelsy and Noelle Go to Hell, wherever podcasts are found. And people like to think that I am in my 20s, but really I am a crusty, dusty 36.
I also like to think that I'm in my 20s. And I'm crustier and dustier than you. So this is not a good look.
I told Noelle that I was going on to like an auntie's podcast. She was like, what are you doing today? And I'm like, I'm going on a podcast where you are in danger of breaking a hip at any point of your day. So she was like, well, let me know how it goes.
Okay.
So far, horrible. I'm having no fun whatsoever.
Oh my God. We haven't even started. It's going to get good.
I'm excited.
It's going to get good because you're going to make it good. So Chelsy, you're here to talk about, so when you and I talked trying to come up with topics, I was trying to think about crossing over between what it is that you talk about and what it is that I talk about. And I came up with a lot of ideas and I didn't see it coming. Like I never thought about it before, and sort of like how, aging. And when you talk about aging, you talk about like medicine, pharmaceuticals, Botox, like all these kinds of things, right? And how aging intersects with what you talk about, which is like conspiracies. And I came up with a lot of topics, but you were able to narrow it down. So what are we going to talk about today?
Okay, so what I think would be really cool to talk about is kind of the fine line between body and mind, and really fun so long as you don't have the misunderstood medical conditions, especially with everything going on of insurance. And I think as women, we can both agree that we're not taken seriously when we go to the doctor very often. to kind of mash all of that together into one perfect nightmare.
This is what people came here for, a perfect nightmare.
I hope that they have fun and they get kind of like a taste of what we do in my neck of the woods. But specifically, I want to talk about Morgellons disease and body integrity identity disorder.
Okay. I had to look up the Morgellons and I was shocked. First of all, don't Google image search it yet, because that's what I started with.
Yeah, no.
It's not. Yeah. Not for the faint of heart there, unless you really enjoy looking at like skin blisters and rashes and stuff like that. Don't Google image search it.
Yeah, we definitely affectionately called it fuzz blood. That sounds better. How is that not better?
I don't know. What kind of fuzz blood?
Fuzz blood is better than like open wound blisters. Like if I'm reading one on the page, I have a less visceral reaction to fuzz blood. Yeah, fuzz blood sounds like some kind of weird Harry Potter spell or something. It kind of sounds like a candy almost.
Yeah. Okay.
Like a
So let's start there because I'm fascinated and you have all the info.
So just a quick overview. Morgellons disease presents with what it's impacted people like to describe as strange fibers under or emerging from the skin, paired with intense sensations of itching, crawling, or biting. So the symptoms that they describe are having fibers, like very tiny little fibers, like red, blue, white, and black, that come out of non-healing lesions. They come with skin irritation and then also neurological issues like confusion and fatigue. I don't know, like, awful. When you get like a hangnail and then there's like a tiny little piece of like a clothing fabric that's on it and it looks like fuzz, or just any time that like a scab gets like a piece of jeans on it and you're like, oh, it looks fuzzy.
Yeah. That's
essentially what they are dealing with. So the problem is that these people are 100% affected, but they're not taken very seriously.
Well, I mean, okay, let's back up for 1 second. First of all, sometimes, like especially in the summer when I'm barefoot in my house, I get like a dog hair that like somehow gets in my skin. Have you had this? You have dogs.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
And it's like kind of painful, right? You're like, what is happening with my foot? And then you look down and somehow like this dog hair has like burrowed its way into your foot.
It's like a sliver.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a sliver. And then you just take it out. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not to say this doesn't sound serious, but a couple of fibers in your skin, I guess if it was all the time, it's like that feels like that all the time for them?
Yeah. So think of it as kind of a mix between having blisters that are uncomfortable and itchy all the time, and then also extreme fatigue that you can't explain. And then having all of that paired with a doctor looking you in your face and telling you it's not happening. I think that's another aspect of Morgellons, is where if you even mention Morgellons to a doctor, like get ready for the padded room, because it's described as delusional parasitosis, which is pretend parasites, like you're making them up. So the hard thing with Morgellons disease, though, is that these people have they can visually see the fibers. They're not microscopic. So that's part of probably what you saw when you Googled it, was these like super zoomed in pieces of almost what looked like carpet strands.
The one I saw, it looked like the lady had like ticks all over her body, like on her arm and hands. It almost looked like she had like bugs on her. I don't know.
Yeah, it almost looks like bed bug bites or like a bunch of mosquito bites. Yeah. And then if you find like closer images, let me see if I can send you one really quick of like the zoom in on the fibers. And this isn't like a microscopic image or anything like that, but you can see where these fibers are almost like embedded throughout the skin. And just like with a dog hair, you're aware of it, or like any one of us has had a hair fall off and it's like on the back of your arm and you can feel it. I couldn't imagine that coming from the inside out. But the issue, what do you think?
People don't the issue is that there's nothing actually there, or like the doctor sees that there's something there, but it's not a disease.
Yeah. So they will present and say that there's these fibers, and the doctors will dismiss it and say they're fibers, but they're not coming from you. You have skin lesions, but it's probably from something else. So it's kind of an issue of these people knowing that something's wrong, but they're not hitting the mark with the diagnosis. So a doctor may say it may be Lyme disease, maybe you have a psychiatric disorder, maybe you just have generalized anxiety, but then these things are getting treated and there's nothing getting better, right? So as a highly medicated person, it took me a really long time to find something that worked, but I couldn't imagine going to my doctor and saying, I don't think I have this. I don't want to take the medication for it anymore. And for them to be like, well, I'm not treating what you think it is, so fuck off.
Watch your mouth.
Which actually has happened. I had the craziest, I got my pap smears mixed up one time and I got the wrong person's medication. And I was like, I'm not pregnant, bitch. And then they tried to tell me that this was my test. And I'm like, I've never been pregnant in my life. And even that, that went to collections and I had to fight it. I had to fight a really weird pregnancy test to make sure that my baby didn't have some bloodborne disease. It wasn't just a regular pee on a stick thing. It was a fetal fucking blood test. And I had to fight it and literally go all the way past collections to say I have never been pregnant in my life. This is not me. And they didn't believe me.
Did they
and they were wanting me, they prescribed me medicine.
Yeah,
they were prescribing me medicine for my baby.
Oh my
and I'm
gosh.
I'm not taking it. It went insane, right? So on a much smaller, more micro level, just not being believed. And when we talked about this on my podcast a few years ago, it went baby viral in the Morgellons community because we started pulling up doctors who were being named as non-believers. And it was really interesting to look at kind of the more good old boy nature that they would have. They just didn't seem like they were interested in any forward thinking in the industry to accept that there might be things that they don't know. So I hope that happens to you, where you can also become a hero to the Morgellons community.
Oh, that's okay. That's rude as hell. At first, I thought you were hoping that I get Morgellons, which seems just really rude thing to say.
No,
Okay.
I hope you don't get. I hope nobody gets it.
You just hope I get Morgellons famous.
You want to know? You can actually test it. We found a test for it. If you gargle red wine, I swear to God, I'm not lying to you. If you gargle red wine for an hour or not an hour, a minute, and then spit it out. Could you imagine for an hour? Oh my God.
For an hour.
If you gargle red wine for a minute to 3 minutes, I'll have to look it up. We did it on our podcast, and then you spit it back into the wine, you should be able to see fibers floating.
Weird.
It just stained my teeth super bad.
Red wine teeth are the worst. I don't mess with people who have red wine teeth. No, you don't have them right now. Were you drinking wine before this episode?
I'm drinking wine all day. No, I'm actually drinking water. So
I just get kind of creeped out when people have red wine teeth, at a party or at a social, and you're talking to someone at someone's wedding reception and they are talking to you and you just can't stop looking at their red wine teeth. Yeah. That's why I don't drink it.
Sometimes you can do that as a power move. If someone's being a bitch to you, you just go, oh, that's interesting. And then you just lock in on some part of their face and keep it unmoving.
I'm going to have to give that a shot, actually. I need more power moves in my repertoire. So thank you for that.
I am, not to go too far off topic, but I'm listening to a book called The Gift of Fear. And it talks about how basically women can weaponize their intuition to not be victimized anymore. And there's subtle little things that go on every day that women or victims do that it teaches you how to not do it. And some of it, I'm getting more empowered to just be awful.
You're going to set someone straight at the grocery store next time?
Yeah. Actually. So just a quick example, but women have been raised to be like very giving. Like, and the idea is that during the hunter-gatherer stage, we were the gatherers, which is not true. Women did both. But society keeps imprinting it into our head that we're meant to be giving and we're meant to be subservient. And that has gone into language expectations to this day. So women have been taught that conversation is transactional and that we are constantly paying, whereas men are receiving. So for a man to say, oh, you look really beautiful today, he has started a transaction that he expects payment from for a woman to be grateful for it. Whereas if a girl is like, oh my God, you look so good, there's no expectation. Like you could snap, you could smile, and that could be it. No response at all. It wouldn't really affect the woman's day. They aren't expecting anything past the payment of compliment, whereas men almost want that like receipt, that transactional thing. So part of the way to shut it down is just ignore men.
I'm doing that. I'm pretending that men don't exist, except my dogs, though they're not men. They're just boys.
Yeah. But I never thought of that before.
Yeah, I never did either. And I think you touched on something about women and kind of this idea that women are supposed to be kind and giving and nurturing and these kinds of things that society sort of pushes on us and has for a very long time. I listened to a podcast just last night where they were talking about, it was a doctor, he's a brain scientist, and he was talking about how autoimmune diseases disproportionately affect women. I think only 8% of the population has an autoimmune disease. So, example, Crohn's disease, Lyme's disease, lupus, those kinds of things. So only 8% of the population has an autoimmune disease, but 78% of those people are women. And he goes on to explain how women are disproportionately affected by autoimmune disease because we bear that stress and the brunt of this idea that we are always caring for others, being a mother, being a friend, being a partner, and that as a society, we really value that in women. And so the more you do that, like the better of a woman you are, the better wife you are, the better mom you are. And that has long-term effects on your body and on your brain, because most often what happens is you don't care for yourself. And I know that sounds super cliche, but they've actually studied that a lot of these autoimmune diseases come from years and years and years of never putting yourself first. And it doesn't just mean like because you didn't exercise, because you took your kid to soccer, not just that, but like even emotionally and mentally, that the tax that you are taking on by constantly being the caregiver, the kind one, it has real effects on your body and the way it operates. And that's why so many women are disproportionately affected by autoimmune diseases compared to men.
I believe it too. And like that has to be generational because like your body keeps a score, DNA keeps a score. I mean, there have even been cases of transplants where the person who has received the transplant starts to take on some behavior of the person that they got the donation from. So I could see that, like, even if you have like a very difficult pregnancy, like your baby could come out with higher chances of colic, or when they're born, whether or not they're going to be more susceptible to allergies and things like that. Yeah. And it's because of how the parent, like the womb mother, you know what I mean? Like how that impacts like a fetus.
It does.
And it's going to be interesting to see. And that's just shitty, right? Or like the second a woman gets married to a man, her life expectancy goes down because those roles are now established within a dichotomy that is just riddled with expectations of her.
The podcast was long, but the other part of it was about ADHD and addiction. And he talked about as a brain scientist where those things come from and your predisposition to have either of them. So you can be predisposed to have addiction because your mom is an addict, right? And so therefore you are more likely to become an addict, but it's not genetic. And a lot of people think it's a genetic marker. So your dad's an alcoholic, which makes you predisposed to be an alcoholic. That doesn't mean you will be. A lot of people do not, right? A lot of people take a totally different path of sobriety, but you're more likely to be an alcoholic if you were raised by one. And it has nothing to do with genetics. It has everything to do with environment. Because then the environment you're raised in is traumatic. And because you were raised in a traumatic environment, it has effects on your brain that make you more likely to have ADHD or addiction. And they talked specifically about experiences in the womb, that they have done a lot of studies that show that traumatic births, for example, can have long-lasting effects on a child, even though they're still in the womb. If a mom has a traumatic birth, that actually presents as trauma to the child. And it seems like that seems so far, like they're not even like, oh, but they're breathing like uterine water or something. Is that, I don't even know how they breathe in there. Do they just breathe water? How does that? Never mind. That's probably the
little gills.
Okay,
here we go. The little
right
gills come off. I'm not. I'm actually putting on chapstick.
Oh, okay. Sure.
I think they just get everything that they need through the umbilical cord.
So they don't actually breathe until they come out?
No, I think they're just breathing in the water.
Huh.
I don't know, Bish.
I don't know either.
They're breathing in, Mama. I've never been pregnant, despite what the doctors say.
You know, it's funny you say that, because me either. And I just got a bill from an unnamed clinic that I do go to see the doctor. I just got a bill for someone's childbirth, and I've told them 3 times I didn't have a child. But I said, listen.
Yeah, they don't believe you.
Yeah, she's like, prove it. And I'm like, no, you prove it. Bring me the baby. And then I'll pay the bill. I don't understand.
I'll fucking prove it when I spread wide open and a tumbleweed comes out of my uterus. Like, how do you want me to prove it?
I told her, like, bitch, I'm old.
Bring me the baby.
I didn't have a baby. I'm old.
Yeah, if I'm having a baby, if I'm paying for the baby, I want the baby. I want the return on my investment immediately. That's so crazy.
I know. And I called like 4 times, and they're like, they have my name, my birthday, my address. They're like, no, it's you. And I'm like, no, it's not me. I did not have a baby. You cannot make me pay this bill.
Not to get anyone fired, because if you say call Luigi to insurance agencies, they will fire you from where you work. But
who's Luigi? Like Mario and Luigi?
Shut the fuck up.
What?
Luigi who shot the CEO?
Oh,
Luigi Mangione?
Okay.
I
thought it was like one of those weird law firms.
I was going to shoot you for real.
Like, call Luigi and Sons. You know, one call and you're done. Kind of like.
No, I actually have to go. Yeah, I have to call a lawyer here soon, because I got some nonsense I'm dealing with. But that's not related to medical stuff.
Okay. When I looked at Morgellons, you know what I also found out? Disproportionately, women are affected. So white women, 90% of people who have it are white women, but 77% of people reporting with Morgellons are female. And the average age of onset is late 40s, early 50s, with an average age of 52. So something that people are... So it just reminds me of like the autoimmune stuff, right? Like these women... I
was just going to say, is that the same? Is that like pancaking, going hand in hand with some of the autoimmune stuff?
From what I read, it sounds like it could be, but... When people present with Morgellons and they go to the doctor, are the doctors telling them that it's psychosomatic, essentially that they're like making this thing up? Is that kind of the common response that people are getting?
Yes. So the most common treatment is to either throw antibiotics at it or anxiety medicine, or like antidepressants and things like that. But there is a doctor, Dr. Randy Wymore, who said, quote, that Morgellons is a real physical pathology, even if we don't understand its cause yet, end quote, and has found that oftentimes, like when you start to go down the path of treating Lyme disease, sometimes those secondary treatments can help people with Morgellons. And Lyme disease is a very physical disease and I think it's like Lyme disease and lupus also took a while for people to take seriously.
Yeah. I also read that there's a conspiracy that it's a bioweapon, that Morgellons is like a bioweapon that's gone awry, and that it was intentionally afflicted upon the population by Russians and Iranians and the CIA and our own scientists. Is that like legit?
So where this can kind of go a little haywire when it starts to get into right-wing conspiracy like that. And I say right-wing conspiracy, not because all biological weapons stuff is right wing. Like we have definitely, especially the CIA has done people particularly to like Black women. But Morgellons and kind of like the 5G type stuff go hand in hand, where there can be physical responses to radio technology. And that's kind of where the conspiracy on this lies. I don't give credence to that because I feel if you don't really have skin in the game and you're just trying to get your physical symptoms treated as somebody who's also been unbelieved, I'm like, yeah, you're skin in the game.
Maybe not the best.
Sorry. I don't really go down that route. Like an unleashed biological warfare thing, maybe.
It's not a very good one, really. Right?
No,
like,
they're definitely, yeah. If we're going to go into anything of like being poisoned, it's the fact that the water's turning the frogs gay is the best thing.
Obviously.
But no, I wouldn't really. When I say I believe in like every conspiracy, I believe that Morgellons does exist, but I don't think it's caused by the Russians. I think it's probably very likely a physical reaction or even a physical sensitivity, but something's definitely happening. Like, have you ever heard of those like clean communities?
Clean community, like you're keeping your house really clean or?
Kind of. So
Okay.
It manifests in different ways. You can have a clean community where there's like literally no chemicals because they are so sensitive to it. And if you think about chemicals, it's literally everything. So it's almost like bare bone cave living because there are chemicals in paint. There is chemicals in the stuff that we clean our glasses with. There are chemicals. If you have fluoride in your water, that's chemically treated, right? So they live in a clean community like that. Or there are people who are radio sensitive where they swear they can feel physically the technology. So they have to live separated from that. Or there are people who, in the most extremes, like will live out in the middle of nowhere, like in the desert because it's dry and mold can't grow there. So I think that it's something that is just where we don't quite understand it. Like, is it a response to microplastics? Maybe is it these people have better immunity, so they're rejecting all the bullshit that we're taking into our bodies? It's hard to say because there isn't like long research done into Morgellons. It's just more actively dismissed or the symptoms are logged and never investigated.
I read one lady's sort of account of what it feels like. And it feels like this Morgellons can be kind of a little bit all over the board, which maybe makes it harder to kind of pin down. So this lady said that I thought there were worms in my eyes. I felt that something was eating me, the top of my tissue, and I could see in my left eye that there's something going on. And up inside the inner of my upper eyelashes, I have white spots and they look like teeny tiny eggs.
Gross.
But then like this guy explains it and he says that it's more like what you said with the fibers and kind of like feeling like you have something under your skin or getting these lesions, just strange lesions on his lips. And the doctors would tell him it's scabies or eczema and they'd give him various creams, but nothing works. And had it like scraped and looked at under a microscope. And, you know, because nobody can tell him exactly what it is, instead they just kind of tell him like it's not really a thing. And I think that is where people get really frustrated when you're, it's just really invalidating, right? It's like having a real life experience and sharing it with someone and then having them be like, it's just like gaslighting. Like, no, that's not exactly how it happened. And you're like, no, I was there. I lived it. That's how it happened for me. And so when you go to the doctor and you present with like, you know, worms, it feels like worms in your eyes and your doctor's like, looks like maybe you got a fuzz on there. Let's just give you some eye drops. It's got to be really frustrating.
Yeah. And it's crazy because like even the idea of Morgellons has been around for so long. It was first mentioned in the 1600s and it's still not something that people are taking seriously because
it's just not enough people present and therefore it doesn't get studied or
maybe because like it was first described as I think it was like 1647. Let me look at my notes. 1647. 1674. The dyslexia. Sir Thomas Browne described Morgellons as hair-like extrusions and sensations of movement on the back of children. And at that time, there were so many skin conditions flying around that you could kind of just like throw a dart at a textbook and probably get something right. But it's hard to say. I don't think that the medical community has caught up to women yet, because even if we go get anything done at the gynecologist and you're not going to get any pain for it because all of the early gynecological tests were practiced, quote unquote, on men. And of course, men aren't going to be able to tell you how bad a biopsy on a uterus hurts.
Seriously.
Yeah, or even putting in birth control. They're just going to assume that there's no pain. And even with like people of color, like they thought for a long time that unless like that people like Black people had a higher pain tolerance. So they needed to brutalize them in police interviews to get a confession. So it was literally just torturing people. And that happened up until I think the 60s or 70s.
Yeah.
So it's like we haven't even caught up to like our own existence on the way that different things manifest themselves, or even like psychosomatic symptoms. Like if you're super stressed and your back hurts, the doctor will be like, oh, it's because you're stressed, and send you out the door. But it would just be so shitty though. Like to have physical symptoms and someone to tell you you're making it up.
And be dismissed. Yeah. I kind of sort of had that experience. And I've had like weird perimenopausal experiences. So I'm 43 and I feel like I'm going through perimenopause, but I'm not exactly sure. I've been waiting for like a letter to get delivered to me or something that says like, hey, you've made it. You're going through perimenopause. But apparently I'm just left to guess about these things. So I've just had weird things happening, but they happen, they don't present the same all the time. So it's like, I like didn't get my period like 2 months and I'm like, oh, well, that was nice. But then I'll get it like 3 times in a month. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, it's not consistent, right? Well, the very first time I remember having like some sort of a symptom was that I felt like there were bugs crawling on me. Now I've talked about this before. There's a name for it. I forget what it's called, but it's when you have the physical sensation that something is on you, but there isn't anything on you. And I feel like that's enough to make a person crazy, because I just felt like a crazy person, because I kept like looking at my skin. I was trying to go to sleep, looking at my skin and flipping the lights on and freaking out. And even though my brain said, there's nothing on you, chill out. When you feel like there's a bug in your hair, like you're going to respond, even though, and I kept telling myself, nope, it's not that. Just don't. And having like these weird, like I'm having these feelings and I can only imagine people saying to me like, that's not happening. And I'm like, no, it is happening. There's like, it feels like there are things crawling on me and I cannot sleep. And it was wild. And then I looked it up the next day because I'm like, what is happening to my body? And it is a symptom of perimenopause. And it only happened to me one time, but you know, you can have it happen to you daily for some people. And I'm glad I'm not some people, because it was not a fun experience.
Yeah. Oh my God, now I'm itchy.
Yeah. See, now you're thinking about it. It's all up in your head.
Yeah. But that's like so infuriating, right? Because like, I know there's that Harry Potter quote, but J.K. Rowling's a TERF, so we'll come up with something else. But like, just because it's in your mind doesn't mean it's not real. Yeah. But also like, I almost want to be like, don't fucking talk to me like that, because I have billions of years of evolution hardwired into my fucking ghost blood that tells me something's wrong. I don't care if it comes through as a sensation of bugs being on me. There's a reason I'm having a reaction to this, and you don't get to dismiss it because it's not your experience. I have women of generations who like fucking fought and clawed for me to be here, just for you to tell me it's not happening. Like fucking treat it. Why is my period off? Why am I having these crazy symptoms? Like you're telling me to just live with it.
Yeah.
Why? You went to 10 years of medical school to be a bastard? I hate it. I fucking hate it. I heard it.
I think the average age of onset for a lot of these autoimmune diseases is 40s, like things like Hashimoto's disease, SS, MS, all these are all autoimmune diseases, Crohn's, the list goes on. I think there's like 100. And the average general age for onset is sometime in your 40s to early 50s that people start experiencing these things. So just to all my middle-aged friends out there.
And as a 56-year-old woman, you're almost out of the woods.
Shut your mouth. To all my middle-aged friends out there, it gets better. It doesn't get better. It just gets worse.
It's so shitty to have to, no, it doesn't. Because you have to have a game plan for how you're going to allow your doctors to treat you. And if they don't want to, then you have to like advocate for yourself, which is uncomfortable. And even just being like, well, then write it down that you're not going to help me, please. can almost feel violent in those really already power imbalance situations.
Right. And it also takes so much time to even get an appointment, to get there, to have the conversation, to wait for the follow-up.
Insurance.
And then you're like, okay, well, now what? And now I'm going to go to someone else. I didn't like that. And then you're another month or two. I've been watching apple cider vinegar on Netflix. Okay. The blank stare on your face says that you haven't seen it. You got to watch it.
No. I only watch a few things, and they're all things I've seen before.
Okay. So at what age did you decide you were only going to watch things you've already seen? Because obviously at some point you were watching new things.
Yeah. So it began and ended in my early 20s. So Jersey Shore.
Okay.
Bad Girls Club. Ink Master.
Obviously.
I do watch RuPaul. And now and then my big fat American Gypsy Wedding.
I could have guessed. That sounded like the next obvious thing. So
yes, it is.
Apple cider vinegar is, it's not a documentary, but it's based on a true story. And so it's like a limited time. I think there's maybe 5 episodes, maybe more, about a girl who faked a brain tumor and went viral on the internet with the things she did to rid herself of the cancer. And then all these people started following her and following her advice, but she never really had brain cancer. She just sort of like made everything up. But also I think it seems at some point that she convinced herself actually that she did have brain cancer. Like she didn't, but I think she thinks she did. Never went to a doctor.
She became like almost an influencer.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Around like having these like juices and raw diets and eating ginger only for a month and all these things. And so she influenced like all these people to do these things to get rid of their cancer instead of doing, whatever the doctor recommended. It was wild. You should watch it. It's really interesting. And obviously it's not 100% accurate, but
it has to be like a homicide charge if you've convinced someone to not get medical attention. But then it's also like, sorry, if you heard that was Bear. He just wants attention so bad.
Hi, Bear.
Oh, also my husband is bringing me Starbucks. I've been shitting on men this whole time, but I have.
Yeah, just interrupt, Oliver.
Sorry.
Ain't no thing. This isn't professional anyway.
I said, will you bring me Starbies? I'm doing my friend's podcast right now. And he comes home and I hear him yelling, hello. And I'm just trying to not make my eye twitch. And then he comes in and says, are you in a meeting?
Yep. Thanks for paying attention. This is why your life expectancy is now shorter because you married him.
I just took years.
Yeah. You're going to die.
But that's also like the doTERRA girlies, have you ever been preyed upon online by a multi-level marketer who like promises to fix you?
I'm trying to think. Like, what are those pills? Green something?
It's whatever. Like green tea in a pill.
Yeah.
Greenworks. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Or like I've been in migraine support groups and I've had women DM me and with the guise of like wanting to have a migraine buddy, because you're supposed to have like a buddy. It's almost like the 12 steps, just realizing that this is going to be your life. And then women will be like, oh, do you want to meet up? I would love to have a friend with migraines, blah, 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 blah. You should hear from my friend who cured her migraines. And that's the way that they get in. And so they like pray, they go into these fucking groups and like prey upon people. And like migraines is like, just one tip of the iceberg, but there's entire groups where you can go in where they shame women. And it's usually women because MLMs prey upon women for getting involved in these schemes and buying into it and then being financially ruined by trying to scam other women.
I watched the one about the leggings or whatever. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh my God, LuLaRoe?
Yeah, that's the one.
Fucking LuLaRoe.
I
hate when I go to like I hate when I go to like something like a craft fair and there's fucking MLMs there. I'm like, keep your nail stickers away from me, Brenda.
Yeah, Brenda, take your nail stickers home. I don't want to be a part of your MLM.
Yeah.
You
know what I mean? It's like, I love people's freedom to do what they want, but also this is a craft fair, bitch.
Yeah. And nail stickers aren't crafts. That's not a craft.
No.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So I'm really into there's like FurCon, which I like to volunteer at with like the furry convention. And sometimes there's MLMs in there. And I'm like, you leave these little furry kids alone. They don't need you.
You stand
giving
up for
them oil, literally snake oil. Yeah, stand up for the furry kids. They are not weird. It's not a sex thing. Everyone leaves them alone. That's actually why I'm here, is to talk about the furry community.
I see. So you're in was to tell me something else and then really get on here and talk about furry community.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You invited my in was to just bide my time. No. Well, it can be a sex thing. Like with anything, it can be a sex thing. But.
Sure. Are there old people that do that, or is it mostly young people?
Yeah, there are older people in the community. I think that like furriness or like having fursonas and stuff is still more relatively new. So I would say it's almost like the same way you could ask are like old people into Pokemon. Yeah, but the old people are like my age.
So old.
Yeah, it's not like elderly, but it's like maybe advanced millennials. Is kind of like where it is. But
I love that. What year were you born?
88.
Okay. Advanced millennial. I like it.
What year were you born?
None of your business.
Wow. I can't believe I asked. I actually just lied, so now I feel vindicated.
You didn't lie. 88. That's right.
I didn't lie. I was telling the truth.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Okay. I was born in 81.
That's disgusting. Just kidding.
The silence said it all.
88. No, 88's like racist now. Like, have you seen that thing in roller derby where if you have the number 88, the fucking Nazis took it. So people who are born in 88 who have that as their derby number have had to change it, and it's just their birth year.
The Nazis took the number? Like recently?
Yeah. Like, yes. Well, probably not recently, but yes, recently, like the Proud Boys have been spouting 88.
Oh,
Let me Google on my work computer, 88 racist number.
Okay.
It's because it's a hate symbol. It stands for Hail Hitler. HH. Because 8. Yeah. So
I did not.
So people who have had 88 are having to change their derby numbers, especially if they're in communities where like Proud Boys are a little bit more prevalent. It's like an obvious symbol of like Hail Hitler.
So you need to change your birth year.
Fuck, I know. I'm going to start telling people I was born in 81, just like you. And I'm like, don't I look so much younger than her?
That's it. You would set me up for that.
Just kidding.
Oh, you would set me up for that. Like, I'm just going to tell people that I'm the same age as you so that they can then tell me how great I look. That's the plan?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Isn't it weird though? Like the expectations of aging that are put upon us that we always have to come to terms with. Like, what's aging well?
Cheese ages really well.
Wine.
Yeah. What else ages
That's
well?
That's my favorite.
That might be it.
You see articles of women aging gracefully, and it just means that they haven't had like work done. But fuck you. If I want to look like Kylie Jenner with my God-given money and free time, let me blow my lips up.
Do it.
I want to age disgracefully.
You got a good start. I got to say, you're already a little bit of a disgrace. So you're just moving right.
I'm trying my best.
So 81 makes me a millennial, but it is the first generation of millennials.
Yeah.
And it's a big generation.
Do you identify as a millennial?
You know, I feel like it depends on what you're saying about them. Because sometimes yes. And I think some of the things that millennials have been through for sure, because they talk about how like the amount of technology and progress that's happened in those years for people of that age. And I think that generation spans like 15 years. I think it goes from 81 to like 96. And it's like one of the largest generations. So
that's massive.
Yeah, that's really big because I feel like people born in 96 are not the
don't even talk to me, infant. I'm not allowed to legally talk to somebody who was born in 96. You know what I mean?
Yeah, disgusting.
But my older sister, born in 85, hates being identified as a millennial because she's like an old Republican man. And it's like weird. Like,
she's an old Republican man and her concern is being identified as a millennial?
Yeah. She doesn't like being called a millennial. She's like, I'm not a millennial. Well, you literally are.
Okay. So these terms are interesting because you can be like generationally, you are millennial, right? But you may not identify as one. And I guess what I mean is like all of the characteristics that we think of, or even the stereotypes we think of about millennials, you may think like, but that's not me. I have a similar issue is like, I don't identify as a lesbian. I don't like the term, but like for me, that word invokes some very specific things in my mind that I don't identify with. So I just call myself gay. I feel like I can understand why someone would say, like, I don't identify as a millennial. Like, it maybe most of the generation was like this, but I don't feel like I'm like this.
That went a totally different way than I thought. I thought you were going to say you didn't identify as a millennial because you didn't have a scene phase. Not that you don't like lesbian, you'd rather say gay. But I went through a very similar thing. Like, a sexual identity, like, is very personal based on experiences, and we have such black and white language for it. So that does make sense.
Yeah.
Like, don't put me into a category based on a decade when my experience is so much different. Okay, I guess I can see that. I'll still say my sister doesn't like identifying as a millennial because she thinks we're whiny. But I'm like, you can't afford a house either, bitch. Like, what the fuck? So
none of us can afford a house.
Anyway,
Chelsea, none of us can afford a house.
No.
It's just the way it is.
The APR, like, what's going on with the APR financing? I have no idea how it works.
I don't even know what that
I have to let a man handle that for me. I don't. Age progressive recession. What is that? That's just gibberish. I just made that up.
That's what I'm doing. Age progression recession. It's when your age is progressing.
That's when I get my lips done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the time of your life when you start getting Botox. That's all I know. Which, if it was more affordable, I would get Botox all the time.
Oh, the only reason I'm not fucking pillow face for the gods is because it's expensive.
Yeah.
And I'm working on my Star Wars sleeve. Well, but I've been working on my Star Wars sleeve, but it's like, that's where my income is going right now. But I would totally get Botox. I want to destigmatize just putting botulism in your face.
I would get Botox if I didn't have to buy eggs. But as it stands,
I stopped buying eggs.
I need to afford eggs.
So now I'm a millionaire.
I can't go broke on Botox. I'm just going to go broke on eggs.
Man, we really went off the rails.
We did.
We didn't even talk about body integrity identity disorder yet. Are we out of time?
You got to come back because I don't even know what that means.
Okay.
And we need to talk about it. Don't even get into it because we need like a solid part 2 where we can talk about that.
Okay. Man.
And also, I do have one other thing that I want to talk about. And you and I, or you and somebody you tell me is smart and wants to do it, are going to talk about. And that is sort of like how pharmaceuticals and the pharmaceutical industry has an impact on our view of aging, what we're trying to accomplish as we age, and why. And I'm really like, we're just, you and I just talking now about Botox and things like that, and how much money people make off us needing to look a certain way as we age, which, as you said, like, do you, right? If you don't like the crow's feet, then, don't have the crow's feet, go get Botox. But it is also a massive industry that's making a lot of money on our backs and wanting to like not have a wrinkle. And so I find it fascinating.
Right. Also, pharmaceuticals and the NRA go hand in hand. Their lobbyists work together because anytime there's a shooting, what do they say? Mental health crisis.
Yep.
Anytime there's a mental health crisis, who lobbies? Pharmaceutical companies.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime the pharmaceutical companies need a joint lobbyist, who do they turn to? The NRA, because the NRA can get money and funding from the pharmaceutical companies so they can turn this narrative on mental health, whereas it's not necessarily a mental health problem. It's a gun problem. So what I'm saying is you got to shoot the wrinkles off of your face.
That's the answer.
I think that's what they want me to do.
You heard it here first.
Load your guns with Botox.
Yes. Load your guns with Botox. We would all be better off. Well, I'm excited to talk about episode 2. So I need everybody to stay tuned because you and I are going to at some point debrief on the part we didn't get to today. But I want you to shout out where can people find your podcast, your Instagram, all those good things.
So it's Chelsy and Noelle Go to Hell podcast. We are available anywhere you can find podcasts at Podomatic, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're on Instagram. We do have a private Discord if you want to jump in and just be absolutely feral. Go ahead and just Google Chelsy and Noelle. If you spell my name wrong, it's fine. It will autocorrect you. Our merch, we donate everything that we make on our merch. And we are big, big fans of dismantling capitalism and fighting our oppressors. in the language of which they speak, which is violence. So how fun is that?
That is so fun. I'm going to drop your info in the show notes, and thank you for being here and chatting. And I look forward to continuing this conversation as we continue to educate people on the craziness that is aging and disease, pharmaceuticals and patriarchy and bugs crawling on your skin and all of those things. We're gonna blow some minds.
Yeah, I apologize for being long-winded. So.
It's okay. We digressed a few times, but that's what keeps it interesting. So I appreciate you being here. And this is Hot Flashbacks. We're out. Want more? We're on all the major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Just search for Hot Flashbacks and subscribe.